get to experience a usability technique in practice. So basically, I'm just going to ask certain questions and we'll be engaging, getting your thoughts and your experiences when it comes to that part. So the very first question I would like to ask is, anyone can share that, is what is your basic understanding of user experience? Anyone provide us with?
Yes. So from my understanding, user experience is a process where you design a product to meet the user's needs, and in the process you evoke positive feelings, or you give a positive experience.
Right. Yes. Okay. Anyone else has any other thing to share? Any different notion?
I think user experience, in a nutshell, bridges the gap between what someone needs and what actually uses an app and interface for. That's what I feel user experience is.
Yes, I think they are all correct and they are all within the main vein of understanding a user's experience from the user's point of view, and that is quite key. How would you consider it being practiced in its original sense? If someone says, okay, I'm going to do a user experience, of course, I'm doing a session to understand our ideas on user experience, but have you seen other methods that from your work experience where you might have encountered people using user experience to test? Anyone share?
So, I mean, for what we do, I mean, the people and I,
Yes.
neural experience, we build a lot of solutions that our customers interact with. Now, when it comes to user experience, we don't have a framework, a laid-down framework for ensuring that the user has the best experience going forward. So in the past, what has happened is we end up doing a firefighting approach. So what happens is you develop a solution, you put it out into the wild. Your customers start using the solution, and then they start complaining. So once that happens, as much as possible, the approach that you have to use in these cases, you have to take the feedback, and then you improve the solution, and then you go take back the feedback, and then you go
Improve the solution.
you just keep improving.
And the results, do they usually yield positive results when you take such approach?
Yes, sometimes, because just like we experienced here, sometimes you have no option but for this to be the product. And I'm sure Munira would attest to that. You have no option. To get your job done, you need to use a particular solution. So sometimes you are at the mercy of the providers of the solution. It could be us, it could be an external party, but you are at the mercy of that person to find time and make the solution better. So when the person makes the solution better, you appreciate it. If the person doesn't, you find your own workarounds around the solution, or you try and manage the friction, for want of a better word.
There's understanding if using these methods, and sometimes you said it does work. But what about the problems or challenges that sometimes come with it? Do you see any?
Yeah.
And if you can you elaborate?
Okay, so now there are challenges.
Right.
A bad user experience, for example, can increase the turnaround time that your user would uses to complete the task. Now, this leads to frustration. It can lead to poor customer service to the client. You can even have your users sometimes turning away clients because the user experience of the solution you're going to use will be terrible. Now, at this point, I'm not talking about just solutions that we have built, but we're talking about the general solutions that, for example, users in a bank may be using. And I mean, for me personally, I noticed that it's sometimes an understanding of your users. When I first came into the bank, I always use this example. I built an application, and on the login page, I use the word authentication. Now, for a lot of us on this table, it may seem common sense, authentication, but you would be surprised. I received a phone call and I was asked, what is authentication? So then a proper user experience would be cut out the jargon, stop being the guy who knows how to speak English, and just go straight, log in. You know, so once you start to attend to the users, you begin to see that your solutions and your products begin to make sense to them.
Yes.
In the sense that most of the times when developers develop, they tend to develop the things for themselves.
As if it's for them, yeah.
You cut out the customers. So you have to go out of the building, talk, because at the end you're not going to use the app yourself anyways. You're not going to use the product yourself anyways. You might use it, but you have an ideal customer you're targeting. Go to them, ask them some questions. What do you want to have? What will make your life much more easier? Because they are going to pay for it. If they are supposed to pay for it, they are going to pay for it, not yourself. So it tends to become some fine. Sometimes it might slow the developing process, but then I think it's a cost or it's an investment that you have to put in at the early stage to avoid so many pitfalls ahead.
Right. Does anyone want to add?
So as a startup, we're going by the lean process, I'm sure if not all of it. So basically what we do is we're using the firefighting approach. So we develop an app, we don't know how your users use it. You have a group of beta users who you interact with before you actually release it to the mass market, because you should be very careful. If you release your app and it's crappy to the mass market, then you're just shooting yourself in the foot. So we release it to those beta users and we interact a lot with them to know how they're using the app. And then we tweak, we make various tweaks. And then when it's finally ready, then
It's a very good point you make. But once the app or the system you've done is completed, the users test it. Is testing again for
yes, there's a lot of testing. I mean, the whole agile process is a process of testing and learning and tweaking it. So basically, that's how we go about it, like in the real practical sense.
Yeah. Then the learning is very important too. I think it's one of the most important things in the process itself. You have to learn from your users, take on their feedback. Sometimes we get so delved into what we are doing that we forget about the things around us, because your users they are your business, they are everything. It's very important.
I'm quite interested in the process or the methods that you use to test users. Do you have system requirements where you develop and the user goes through each one by one, as I once did user testing with when I used to intern with Native for Fujitsu, and to just give us a list of things that the developers did and the user had to go through? Or was it just a matter you develop the system, user go and use, and we watch it? So I just want to understand what methods you use, because they're quite important in understanding the user experience.
So so we use a lot of analytics.
Great.
So we use Mixpanel, Flurry, and the likes. So basically, once you release, say, a mobile app, right, there's a lot of analytics in there. So you're looking at how they're using it, like live. When somebody clicks on the button, like you're seeing it, this guy has gone here. So once, like over a period of time, you see that they're using particular parts of the app more than particular parts, right? So for those beta users, it's very important that you have a good relationship with them, and then from the data you're able to like call them and ask, like you have real interviews where you talk to them, or how is how are you using the app, why do you prefer to go to this part and why not this other part, like, so you get a sense of how they're using the app, and you're using the data and the feedback you're getting to get a complete sense of how the experience they're getting from the app. That's what's this.
If you could just elaborate, what's the name of the analytics tools?
So there's Mixpanel,
Mixpanel,
Flurry, there's Facebook Analytics, even Facebook
Yeah.
Analytics. So for
Do you use Google Analytics?
Google for web.
For web, only for web. You don't use it for app. That's fine. Yeah. Anyone else wants to share?
I also want to add, sometimes it has to be a mix of both, using the analytics and actual human interactions. Because nothing, the analytics can get you to a point, but sitting down and talking to a person, the emotions, even the emotions on their face, the expressions of their face, tell you a lot of things. Because fine, you sit behind your computer, you see the analytics, fine. But then when the person is using it, how they even perceive your app, how the colors, does it seem right? Is it okay? The emotions talk a lot. So it's you balancing between using analytics and actual human interactions. I think it should be a mix of both. You shouldn't just choose one over the other. You should blend it in.
This is more an aggregate. I just would like to know how many people use online banking or mobile app banking to check their accounts or to make transfers. Right. And how's the experience been?
Feel free.
I think banking in Ghana is growing. I think they are doing a lot of work. Cannot downplay that they are doing a lot of work. But then maybe I don't know. But it seems the banks, the competition with the banks is not the other banks. It's not technology. It's cash. It's not technology, or it's not your other bank. It's cash. How are you going to make the person feel and think that with this thing, I still have that cash that I would carry along all the time? I think it's a point that I don't know they're yet to discover or they're yet to understand.
Can we respond to that?
Yes.
Okay, so the first point number one, you're absolutely correct. In fact, I was expecting that you guys would bash us more. Now the thing is, there are two things as to why currently your banking experience is terrible. One is the cost of having proper infrastructure. Now, a lot of the banks are stuck with legacy systems.
Yeah.
And the costs that the consultants and technical third parties require to make changes, trust me, a bank is all about the bottom line. And another thing about Ghanaian banks in particular is, have you ever heard of a Ghanaian bank that gave a 10-year loan?
No.
7-year loan?
No.
5-year loan?
No.
Sometimes maybe
Right.
5.
Yeah.
Now, you see, now that is because of the reporting cycle for a bank. When a bank picks up all its books, its balance sheets, picks up all of those things, profit and loss, they are taking in short term. So when you're asking them to make a huge capital expenditure and say replacing the whole switch infrastructure, replacing this whole internet banking, it's mobile apps, and then the people at the top begin to balk. Because now they are looking at the Ghana market. They think we are not Nigeria. I don't think there's any bank in Ghana that has 5 million accounts. I don't know, but I know we don't have 5 million accounts. Now he's looking at how much money I can make from this. There's a term that I like to use. What is it, cost benefit or and the return on investment? These are very important things for the shareholders. And I mean, I've been in a bank for over 4 years, and I've come to see that to the shareholders, it's all about how much money they can make. They don't really care. It's business. Now, the other thing about banks that people don't also realize is that the money in the bank doesn't belong to the bank. It's depositors' money. So for us to take that money to go and do this investment is a challenge. So that's one. Then two is the culture. Majority of top-level executives in Ghanaian banks don't know what the hell is going on. When it comes to technology, they are very good at the finances, they are very good at calculating risk, very good at all those traditional areas that banking was supposed to be. So they don't see what you say. That I should think about how my phone is. Some may, some may not. And so there's a clash. You guys spoke about lean. The bank executive's idea to a product development team is, please, I want a product for my SMEs. Finish. How soon can I get it? Timelines. Finish. Now you want to tell them, boss, what we want to do is, we want to have an agile methodology where we'll come back and forth. And it's our current battle. In fact, we put our foot down. We said, this year. I actually told them that, this year, if you think that you're just going to tell us that you want an application, forget. Because we have applications that we finished building that they are not using. You've wasted everybody's time. I mean, our team could have worked on something else. We could have built a better mobile experience. Yeah. But we ended up
doing those things.
So it's not as easy. I used to be in a startup world as well, like you said. Yeah. And sometimes there's a cultural clash. You can ask my colleagues. There is a huge cultural clash. But I don't know. I mean, that's all I can say. I just wanted to give you an insight about to how banking works.
That has been a very insightful feedback.
Yeah.
As user have one of the things we want to do is to establish a UX lab and perhaps more user experience labs where companies or organizations can come in with internal testing. What we would like to know if it's a good idea and how perhaps it might work with tandem with business. If anyone can give an insight or perhaps a contribution. First and foremost. Okay, first of all, does anyone have an idea of what a UX lab is?
I think throw more light on that. You could throw more light on that, right?
Pardon?
So you could throw more light on that.
Right. Now, UX labs are quite predominant in the Western world. It's special labs, well, not typical as a scientific lab where you see test tubes and Bunsen burners and all chemicals and see all kinds of compounds and chemicals going on about. There are special rooms designed. We would actually, the good thing is that we'll have a session where you will see a live UX lab in the West. And we have someone to go through each and every phase of what it is. But I will just use this time to expand on what it is. So they're basically rooms where people can do testing. So you might go in there and you might see a very nice room, a living room with a nice ambience where people can sit down like us and they might discuss about a mobile app that has just been recently been released.